I was raped by a friend, brutally beaten. Um, and I'm kind of skimming through that because I don't want to, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I truly felt that moment broke me, and it disrupted my reality.
Mm-hmm.
It disrupted this world where I felt like I was safe. I was a daddy's girl. That's not supposed to happen to me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like that doesn't happen to girls like me. Or so we think, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, and this is why I say like certain things that we learn growing up is we don't talk about certain things. And that's how we're taught to deal with emotions because that's how our parents dealt with their traumas and emotions,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we don't understand why it's bad until you have to deal with something. So I
Right.
never thought about my mom not talking or being, you know, not as affectionate as my father. And I never thought about that and never was upset about it or anything. It was just, that's the mommy I see.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't until this happened to me that I couldn't tell anybody. I felt dirty and ashamed, embarrassed.
Mm-hmm. Welcome to Growing Up Latina. I am your host, Ali V. I am shocked right now because I just started this episode crying. It's very weird but surreal for me. I don't even know why I'm crying. I know why I'm crying. Today's guest is a friend of mine. And it's interesting how we met and how this friendship, took off. But I have the pleasure of introducing you guys to my friend, Nicole. She is the CEO and founder of Nikki Maar.
Hi.
You are here.
You got me here.
Oh my God, you're here.
Finally.
Is this weird for you to sit?
Super awkward.
I always tell you, I'm the friend that makes you do the most uncomfortable things. I literally take you out of your comfort zone. I'm like, Nikki, let's do this. Nikki, let's do that.
Time. You know, I'm most comfortable when we're having our chats and I'm in my bed. And I don't have to do all of this.
I know.
Easier.
So we talk all the time. And every time we talk, I'm always like, we should do a podcast.
I know. You're part of my daily routine. It's feed the baby, make some food, check on the salon, do this, do that. Wait, Ali, let me check in.
Yeah. So you and I met a few years back through a mutual friend.
Right.
And at the time, you were looking for someone to kind of expand the business, right? You currently have Nikki Maar Salon, which is located in New Jersey. What part of New Jersey?
West New York.
West New York?
Yes.
West New York. And you have this amazing hair care brand, Nikki Maar.
I do.
Which recently, let's talk about it. Let's get right into it. You are featured on Elle Magazine.
Yeah, so I was featured on the editor's top 25 hair care products for curly hair. Wow. So we were number 7.
You were number 7. Mm-hmm. And I remember you called me.
So unexpected. I was like, what the hell is this? Did you do this?
You're so nonchalant and you're like, I don't know how I got here. I'm like, are you kidding me?
I mean, you know what's crazy? When you're running the race, you don't realize it until you get to the end and it's like, oh, I did that. How?
I felt like I was more excited for you. I was
absolutely.
Like, oh my God.
You absolutely
we got a post.
were.
And you're like, I'm still trying to figure out.
I'm like, I don't know what to do with this.
Yeah, you're like, I don't know what to do with this. That's such an accomplishment, by the way. That.
I mean, you helped me get there. You helped me kind of map it out.
Oh
I didn't know what I was doing. When I first met you, it was like, all right, I got this hair product that, it came up during COVID. I didn't have anything to do.
So you're a pandemic business.
Pandemic business, pandemic mom. like all of that.
Which all the odds are against you, right? Because even being a pandemic mom,
So
that's a whole different
that's a whole nother
experience, right?
thing. Yeah, girl. And then she was at the end, so luckily I was still able to do stuff. But so Nikki Maar, well, I'll get you started at the name.
Yeah.
So
Let's
the
talk about that.
name came up. It was my mom and I.
Yes.
I was 15 and I wanted to do a t-shirt line. So we were laying in bed and I was coming up with different names. I've always loved my name. So I was playing with different spellings. And at the time, I was really interested in powerful letters. So this is like a thing. So people can Google like powerful letters. So K is a very strong letter. M is a very strong letter. And A is too. So I was playing with Nikki, different spellings. So Nicky, Nikki. So I did stuck on Nikki. And then Marie is my middle name.
Me too.
Yeah, so I think all Latinas'
Yeah,
middle name
I
is
think we're all
Marie at
Marie.
some everywhere. Everybody's a Marie somewhere,
Yeah.
right? So then I just played with the spelling, and I really liked the way the two A's kind of stood together. So it was more about aesthetics. And then it kind of stuck with me. It became like, during the video girl era, everybody had like their moment trying to be in a video.
Yeah.
Another growing up Latina thing, right?
Yeah.
So it was like Nikki Maar, and that just stuck with it.
Yeah.
So fast forward, my husband and I always wanted to start a hair salon. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. I was in beauty school, pandemic hits. So I had to literally turn in my lease, turn in my commercial space. I thought it was a failure. So at the time, we didn't know where things were really going, right? It was a scary time for everyone. And I lost a lot of money, a lot of loans that were taken out, and, we had to kind of figure it out. And I was like, you know what? In the middle of me cutting out my extensions, I'm like trying to figure out what am I going to do? And then I noticed my hair was like really damaged. So then I started getting into healthy hair solutions, natural things that were like people were making at home. And then I came across Chebe.
Yes.
That was my first product.
Yes.
That was the hair paste. And so I did some research. I found a manufacturer, and then I started selling that. And that went really, really well, surprisingly. And it actually helped my hair grow a lot because I started from scratch again, cut my hair out, started doing my natural curls. And I sent the product off to my aunt who, she was a cancer survivor. And her hair started growing back amazing. So I was like, I think we got something here, babe. And then we started expanding onto different products, hair maintenance, hair styling.
How many products do you have right now?
11.
11.
11 products in total. We even have a men's line, a beard line.
Yes, you do.
So that one's doing all right,
But what
It's
would
okay.
make you do that? Did you feel like there was a void in that space that you wanted to fill?
We've had this conversation.
Yeah.
You're slick. Okay. So the reason I've always felt like my husband is my partner in life. And I've always felt like it was important to kind of include him as well. Like, yes, I am a woman. Yes, I stand on my own, but I'm also a wife and I'm also a daughter. So, part of being a wife is making sure that, my better half is also appreciated and acknowledged. So that was kind of my way to just like include him and do something to represent that side of me because he is a very important part of my life.
There's so much to unpack here.
Girl.
So let's start with, there's so much, because we speak all the time.
I know.
And even though I have some of the answers, like one of the things that I love about our relationship is no conversation is alike. Unless when you give me advice and you're like, you're not listening, Allie.
No, at that point, I'm just like, I'm not talking about this anymore.
Yeah, you're like, you're not listening. But I want to talk about, first, where are your parents from?
So my mother is from Santiago, Dominican Republic.
Okay.
My father is from La Capitan,
Okay.
Dominican Republic. That's
So you're
formerly known as
full
Santo
Dominican.
Domingo.
Yes.
Yeah.
Full Dominican,
Full
both
Dominican.
parents.
Yeah.
And what I've always found fascinating, and I tell you all the time, is your growing up Latina is different, right?
Yeah.
You give the other side of growing up Latina. And what I mean by the other side, because everybody's experience is different. So my experience is coming from divorced parents, kind of like this broken household. And, you know, I speak about it often on the show, how it shows up in my life as an adult with finding partners to be with. You actually grew up with both of your parents.
I did.
And they're still together.
They are.
They're still together. And we have so many conversations and I'm like, your parents are still together. Like, I don't know why that's such a shocker for me, because the people that I've surrounded myself with, we all come from divorced parents.
You know.
And you're a daddy's girl too.
I'm such a daddy's girl.
You're such a daddy's girl.
Horrible. I was on the phone with him before I got here.
Yeah.
So I didn't understand that until I became an adult, like the sacrifices that my parents made to stay together.
What were some of those sacrifices?
I think just being young, and they were immigrants.
And occupation-wise, like what were they doing? What was your dad doing? What was your mom doing?
Interesting. My dad was basically getting by on odd jobs. He was a taxi driver. Back then, there were like the long Lincoln Town cars. So he was one of those. He was like the gypsy cab from uptown. Yeah, he was one of those. My mom had a secretarial job on Park Avenue, and then later on, she got a better position. She worked for this company called Pacific Footwear, and she always worked in fashion, but on like the, I guess, accounts managing side, on receivables and stuff like that. My dad later on then got a job as a handyman in a building, but he's had crazy. He was a florist once. He worked in a factory.
So he was a hustler.
He was.
He was a hustler. Do you feel like you get your hustler mentality from him?
Yes, I do.
And then what do you get from your mom, you feel like?
From my mother, I get the structure, the poise. My mother's a very poised woman. The knowing when. Very important, you know, knowing when things are appropriate. What's the right time? My mom is she's a complicated individual, but she's a very smart woman. And a lot of things that I learned from her were survival skills. Sometimes I look back and maybe not the best to apply to today's age, but definitely important. Knowing when and where things are appropriate was very important and vital in growing up in New York City, growing up being a Latina woman. Because we have that fire, right? Like, we want to say whatever we want, when, and then being a daddy's girl, add that onto the mix.
No, we're not spicy, no.
Oh, never. No, nunca. Claro que no. So a lot of different elements I take from my parents, but I'm going to be very honest with you. It wasn't until I was 30 that I appreciated my parents. I apologized to my mom.
Did you?
After my daughter was born.
Really? You had that moment with
I was
her?
in the shower. I had my C-section. I was in excruciating pain. And when I was a teenager, I remember I told my mom, "You don't really love me. My friend's mom loves me more than you." And that hurt my mom till this day.
Yeah.
And I remember saying sorry to her because I was like, no one knows a mother's pain until you actually like are there. And I remember I was crying in the shower. I was like, "Mom, I'm so sorry for everything I've ever done to you."
Yeah.
And it was that moment. That was pretty rough.
No, I feel like I've had that moment too with my mom, because I remember I was like such a rebel, and I was like this girl that I always felt like misunderstood in the household. And then she kicked me out eventually, and that's when I was like, "I'm never gonna speak to you ever again." And she was like, "Yeah, okay." You know, like she's like, "Yeah, fine."
Yeah.
And then, you know, I would say like a couple years back, maybe not even a couple years, because actually when I moved out, I didn't know how to do anything. My mom did everything for me.
Girl, me too.
Like she cooked, she cleaned, she washed my clothes. You know?
Same here.
And then when I moved out, I didn't know how to do anything, right? I didn't know how to cook. You know, cleaning, that was kind of like a comfort thing. Whenever I felt out of control, I would clean to maintain control. Washing clothes, I like bleached all my clothes because I had no idea how to wash clothes. So it was very rough. And then I'm like, I love you. I miss you. Like, I'm so sorry. Because you don't understand the position that they play, the role that they play in your life until you play that role.
Yeah. And I think we don't realize how much our parents try to protect us. I mean, for the most part, at least in my experience.
Yeah.
Looking back, I can hear my dad's voice in my head all the time. Nikki, don't do this. Nikki, do this. Nikki. And now I'm like, he did know what he was talking about.
Yeah.
He was right.
He was a little right.
He was a little right.
Yeah. What do you think they were trying to protect you from at that time? Was it friends? Was it boyfriends?
All of it. Life experience. I think my parents, at some point in my life, I became very rebellious. And I don't remember exactly when that point was. It was like those teenage years, those hormones hit. And I became like very angry. And I don't know how that. I've always kind of felt that I didn't get that kind of like affection from my mom, maybe.
So you were angry at them?
I don't know.
Were you just angry at
I think
life
I was just like angry at them. Like, you don't understand me. You guys don't let me do anything.
Right.
You know, like that kind of teenage rebellious.
Right.
And then I was always very like, I want to say persistent. And now it's become like a good thing.
Yeah, I was going to say that actually is.
If I want something, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care. No, I won't stop. I won't stop. So as a teenager, that's not good.
Yeah.
So now as an adult, it's a great characteristics because I'm able to apply it into positive things, right? Because now I have the knowledge and the experience. And I've stumbled a few times. So now with the maturity that I have, I'm able to understand when to push and pull on that a little bit more.
One thing I love about you, and I say this to you all the time, you're very calm. Like, you're so calm. Like, I can give you worst case scenarios in my life that will actually happen. And you're like, no, it's okay, Ali. Don't worry about it. Just maintain control. What can we do? And I'm like, I'm freaking out. And even in your own life, like when you have like real issues.
Oh yeah, talk about it, girl.
You'll tell me those issues, but like very calm, almost scary. And I tell you all the time, I'm like, you're scaring me.
Oh, girl.
Where does that come from, you think? Like, just
my father's like that.
Your dad's like that?
My father is a very pragmatic person. He's very rational. He looks at everything almost like a math problem. 1 + 1 = 2. Like, it's that simple. If there's a puzzle and there's a piece missing, then there's a piece to go in there. So you will find it. So you can't think in an irrational state. So if you're all worked up in your emotions, you can't think clearly. Right? Do you find that? Like, I always tell you that.
I feel very calm right now, even talking to you.
Like, you can't think clearly. So
I think it's the idea of the unknown, right?
So you got to remove that emotion, right? You have to kind of find a way and find that space where you're like, what is this problem?
Yeah.
What is the solution? Let me take myself out of it. It's not me anymore, right? So if you can kind of like visualize, like, this is problem, and then these are the possible things that could fix that problem. Now, how do I get those things? And you start kind of working backwards on it. And that kind of settles me. It calms me because I'm like, okay, there is something. And then in the event that I find that there is no solution, well, then I just have to kind of live in those feelings for a moment, right? And just accept it. Like, okay, well, tomorrow's another day. We'll figure it out.
Was there a moment in your life where you felt you could not maintain the control?
Yeah.
And what was that moment, if you can share?
This is where you get me. So, backstory, I'm going to share this for the first time. A lot of people that know me don't know this. Because there was a lot of shame attached to it and embarrassment. And then a lot of it had to do with, like, it took me 10 years to even say anything. Um, a lot of it had to do with my heart's beating so fast right now.
I mean, please take your time and whatever you want to share, Nikki, because
Yeah, I'm not gonna go too deep.
yeah,
But
I get it.
A lot of it, that loss of control, right? So, what is the one thing that we have control over? It's our bodies, our decisions, and when someone kind of crosses that and takes advantage of a relationship, friendship, and takes advantage of that, right? And abuses that, you kind of lose this idea of what the world is supposed to be. So I need a minute.
Yeah. Let's take a minute because this is sensitive, and and we have to be sensitive.
So the only reason I'm sharing this is because I was doubting whether or not I'd share, but I was talking to my makeup artist, and she was just saying to me like how that would be so helpful for so many women, because I was like, I don't know if I'm going to share. She's like, no, you should, because people need to hear it and they need to know it's okay. And so I was like, all right. And then my husband was like, just help people look at it that way. So here it goes. I had an experience when I was 19, and I remember I didn't have my keys, so I needed to. I'm gonna kind of not go through all the details, but I was raped by a friend brutally, beaten, and I'm kind of skimming through that because I don't want to, and I truly felt that moment broke me, and it disrupted my reality. It disrupted this world where I felt like I was safe. I was a daddy's girl. That's not supposed to happen to me. Like that doesn't happen to girls like me. Or so we think, right? And, one of my, and this is why I say like certain things that we learn growing up is we don't talk about certain things, and that's how we're taught to deal with emotions, because that's how our parents dealt with their traumas and emotions, right? And we don't understand why it's bad until you have to deal with something. So I never thought about my mom not talking or being, not as affectionate as my father. And I never thought about that and never was upset about it or anything. It was just, that's the mommy I see. It wasn't until this happened to me that I couldn't tell anybody. I felt dirty and ashamed, embarrassed. That night,
not one person.
No. So crazy part is, I had a job at a union. All I could think about was I have to get to work. I have to get to, like, in that moment, I had to get to work. When I got to work, I was still like, obviously in a state of shock. And so we had these things called representatives, like union reps. So I had to call my union rep. I was like, I need to talk to you. I have to go to the hospital. And so what happened, I was like, I was assaulted last night. I got to the hospital. They did a kit, and they called the police officer. And I told them a whole story, and then I couldn't press charges because it happened in New Jersey, and I was in New York.
Wow.
And that was that. I was like, you know what? That was my attempt. I tried, and I just had to kind of pack it up mentally. At that moment, I didn't know the damage that I was adding. It was like insult to injury. Because I wasn't prepared to deal with that. I was 19 years old. And what happened after that were the decisions that I was making were all coming from a place where I didn't have value. It was almost like I felt like broken goods. the attitude was, you can't do anything to me. The worst is, but like that was the back of my mind. Like instead of becoming more defensive or more guarded, I almost felt like less worthy.
Mm.
And it took me years. And then on top of that, I married a very abusive man who kind of piggybacked off of those feelings, you know, and made it worse. And it was just years of not feeling in control.
All right. I'm going to rewind really quick, and we don't have to touch on it too much, but during this time before you got into that relationship, were there other relationships that you were in where you may have shared this information?
Oh, so
And
yeah, I
and what
did
were
tell
their
you this
responses
part.
like?
So I was with someone at the time, and his response was, it was crazy because I told him. And he was like, well, that was your fault.
What?
Yeah, he was like, you should have never called him. And girl, like that, it's crazy because and this is why I always tell you, be kind to yourself.
Yes.
It's so easy for us to hear the bad stuff and internalize that. I'm so stupid. I always tell you, don't say that.
Yeah.
Don't be kind to yourself. Because that's the voice that you're telling yourself inside, and subconsciously, you're believing that. I started believing that it was my fault. I started believing that I could have done this, I could have done that. You cannot take responsibility for someone else's viciousness and lack of control. So even for like women out there that have like gone through this, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. But what I did take away from that was, where do I go from here? Now, fast forward, this is 10 years later. After 10 years of poor decisions, of substance abuse, all the things that I could possibly damage myself with, and having toxic relationships from, I never got to the root of why. I almost like buried that. And
But were you seeking it? Were you seeking that truth in yourself?
I just never felt validated. I never felt, I believed that I did that. I did that to myself. I believe that.
But there was a shift somehow, some way for you.
I'm going to be very honest with you. And even after therapy and going to an institute and like doing all the work that you possibly can do, like I've gone to, groups like AA, and I believed in their process and system. And there was a shift. When I met my husband, he has a very raw and real way of dealing, very no nonsense. And at first, I kind of thought he was an asshole. I was like, you don't know, like, and he's like, you know what, I don't, and like, you know, I can't, like, that's not something I can deal with.
Right.
And somewhere in there, because, you know, I think about a lot of things. You know, me and you talk, and I process things a million times. That's never changed in me. And I realized, why am I still a victim? I've never given myself time to like really face these things and deal with it. And I've never taken control. And this is where we go back to the control, right? Always being in control. I needed that back. Yeah, I needed that back. I needed to find that girl that I was before. Like, I was very proud, and you know, I always wanted to excel, and just, I had that in me once. So it's there somewhere. And I remember one time I was sitting in an AA meeting, and I used to go into those rooms and just kind of listen. And one day I was just like, why am I here? You know, I'm a big believer of your thoughts. You know,
You always tell me that.
your thoughts become your reality. So if I'm sitting in a room with people telling their horror stories, it's like, this is what I'm accepting as my reality. Like, talk about it once, yeah, but I'm listening to this every day, every
Right.
day, every day, every day. And it's almost like I'm not moving forward. It's like I'm stuck in this space. So I had to make a decision to take control. And they tell you that, you have no control. You're powerless, right? I didn't accept that for myself. Like, what do you mean I'm powerless? At some point, there's a moment of clarity where you decide. And I had that moment, and I was like, you know what? This isn't for me. I don't want to live my life like this. Like, no.
But that was coming after several moments where you felt unworthy,
Absolutely.
where you felt like not valued within yourself. So
it becomes a habit, and it becomes so easy to not love yourself at some point. That becomes almost second nature. Like, you say it. You say this shit like, oh my God, I'm so stupid. No, you're not stupid. Oh my God, I can't believe it. No, that's okay. You make a mistake. And so everything that I tell you is the things that I've had to teach myself.
I think so it's for people that are listening to this right now, right? It sounds cliche, right? To go from one traumatic experience and then say, okay, I'm going to change all of this and turn this around. I'm here to tell you guys, she's an evolved person.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to give you a prime example of ways that I've witnessed this in our friendship. You were drinking, right? You were a heavy drinker at one point in your life.
I was.
And I remember, like, I had some, like my experiences with alcohol, right? And I remember calling you one time and telling you, like, oh, I hate that I got drunk today. I can't believe, like, this happened to me.
I remember that.
And then you make all these really bad decisions, right?
Yeah.
And regret. So you wake up with guilt, regret, all
Shame,
of that.
all
shame.
of this nonsense. You're just like, why did I do that?
And then you would tell me, like, why don't you just stop it all together? And I'm like, oh, easier said than done. And we would go out to eat. You would purposely take me to restaurants, and the waitress would be like, oh, what do you want to drink? And I would want to order a martini or something. And you're like, no, I'm just going to have water with lemon. And it's like you wanted to show me this in real life. Like, this is really, like, if you want to make this change, you can literally make this happen for yourself.
So I had a real conversation with my husband one day, and he's like, what has it given you? If you can give me a positive example, because some people can drink and maintain control. In my toxic state of self-hate and self-deprecation and just like not feeling worthy, I could not do that. I couldn't.
Right.
And I own that. I couldn't. So I just wouldn't do it in public at one point, right? So now I'll just do it at home. But then that was still not fixing me. Like I'm just hiding something. That's still stupid, right? Because I'm not doing it for the public. Like, I need me for me.
Right.
And there came a point that I was having one glass of wine with you at dinner. And you were like, you don't want to? I'm like, no, it's just for dinner.
And you would tell me, like, I'm okay with one.
And that was after I came back from Cali, I think. Yeah, it was after I came back.
Yeah, I remember that day.
So California was a big life-changing experience for me.
You talk about that often. You always talk about, like, the difference between New York and Cali and, like, just your energy.
Yeah.
And the difference. So,
I mean, you visited me there. It was different, girl.
Oh my gosh, she was with the sage, and I'm like, what is happening right now?
Yeah, it was just
still very calm, but there's something about the West Coast that does it for you. And what is that?
Pacific Ocean, girl. It was just a different energy.
Yeah.
You know what it was? I found my peace there. It was a time that I took for myself. Was
that the first introduction to your peace, you think?
Absolutely. It was a turning point. It was a pivotal point in my life. It came after a very dramatic blow up in my house between me and my husband. And it was just like, that was it. It was like, that was it. There was no more coming back. And it came, again, it goes back to that toxicity, that internal toxic, right? Like, you want to break everything. So you do shit and you don't even realize subconsciously that you're destroying things that you've created because you're angry inside.
Mm-hmm.
So I went over there. I didn't have a plan in the world. My family was even against it. Like, you don't leave your husband. Like, I said, I need to do this for me. I gotta figure this out. And I went out there, and one of my good friends, I stayed with her for a while. And one of my other best friends stayed with him for a while. So,
Yeah.
and then I figured it out. And then I brought my products over there. That was great.
Mm-hmm.
But on the spiritual side, I found walks on the ocean to be really calming for me. And I took it to the next level. I started seeing a hypnotherapist.
Oh my God, I'm so glad, because I was going to bring that up.
Yeah.
So, because I speak about it on the show on like my journey through like hypnotherapy.
Yeah.
And you were the person that
Yeah.
introduced me and put me on
Yeah.
to the hypnotherapist. So talk a little bit about that, because that was a game changer for me.
Yeah. So one thing about hypnotherapy, I've done all kinds of therapy. I've done behavioral therapy. I've done group therapy. I've done one-on-one sessions. I've done it in intensive therapy. So I'm very familiar with different forms of therapy. So this was different for me because it wasn't your typical approach. I was addressing my subconscious thoughts. And this is why I always tell you, be kind to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because that voice that you have inside is like a record player. So when something happens, it's like, you see, it's never going to work out for you. It's like that little evil voice of things that you've heard. Oh, you're not going to make it. Oh, it's not going to happen for you. This doesn't happen to girls like you. You're broken. Like, that voice is in there.
Yeah.
That voice is telling you all these things. So what happens if you reprogram that voice? If you start repeating these things in your mind subconsciously, you are worthy and deserving. You are great. You are amazing. You are a survivor. You can do this.
Mm-hmm.
And you play that in your mind while you're sleeping, in that very moment before you fall asleep.
Mm-hmm.
And even though you may not believe it, you start believing it. The same way it took years to program you to believe that you ain't, it's going to take years to do that reprogramming.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be patient with yourself. So I took that very seriously.
Who put you onto that?
Google, girl.
Oh, did it?
Swear to God.
Really?
Yeah.
Was it that you were just looking for help in any which
way, shape, or form?
Yeah.
I needed something different. Because, listen, I support the therapeutic community,
right,
100%. But sitting there and talking to someone and not getting any feedback or any action to the problem, it's just like, it's redundant. It's like, all right, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to tell you my problems, but what are we actively doing here? Like, what's happening? Like, give me something. You know what I mean?
But I almost want to take this back to like even your household, right? Because in my household, let's say something happened. It would happen, and then the next day it would be like, oh, quiero un cafecito. And I'm like, wait, are we going to pretend like none of this just happened yesterday?
So my dad is very progressive. My mom is more like, all right, it's over. That's it. It's done. Let's pack that up and put it away. But my mother was always very, she knew that she didn't have the tools, but she was going to provide the tools for me.
What were your issues spoken of in the household? Did you guys
She sent me to therapy.
And your dad?
They would send us to therapy. My father, though, my dad will listen. But it's crazy because I didn't give my father the confianza or the trust to tell him things until way later. Like, I always play back the tape in my mind, like, of what happened. If I had just trusted that I could call my dad, like, my story would be completely different.
Now I want to add another element to the story. Your brother.
Oh, I love that boy.
Yeah, I love your brother.
He's amazing.
Like, he's good.
He's an amazing guy.
He is good. Like, high level conversation.
Oh,
I even
my
tell
God.
you, like, one
He's
of the
so
reasons.
annoying. God, he's so smart.
No, but I think even you, like, we talk about this all the time. And I told you, like, one of the reasons why I brought you on the show was because for me, what you give me is high level conversations on a day to day.
Yeah.
I wanted to share that with the world because, and I remember even asking you, like, where did you get this extensive vocabulary from?
God, yo, here we go.
Because I always ask you that, like, where are you, like, this language that you have, this vernacular, like, where does that
So I attribute that to PS234. Shout out to PS234 on Church and Chambers, my elementary school. So we moved from 109th Street to Tribeca when I was 10. So, our demographic changed.
And what was that? Growing Up Latina in Tribeca.
So back then, Tribeca is not what it is now. It was very like solitary. Like we had our school, but it wasn't like strollers, and it wasn't like that at all. Okay. It wasn't child friendly. But it was different. I didn't know what Tribeca was when I was 10. I didn't know. I just knew that it was a new job that my dad got, and we lived in this loft. Our rooms didn't have walls. We were just in this open space, and it was weird. And we, as kids do, you adapt. It wasn't until I want to say high school that I appreciated my neighborhood. I was like, oh, I live in Tribeca. Okay,
yeah, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
But also, just to go back to what you said about like my speech and vernacular and choice of words, my tone, I attribute that to my mom. My mom's read thousands and thousands of books. One rule in my house, like we weren't allowed to say yo. Like Ebonics was not a thing. Now we get away with it because obviously we've made it through life, So now it's like you get a little pass. But we weren't allowed to use Ebonics. Like we just weren't.
That's what I'm saying. Like even I remember recently for Thanksgiving, you invited me over to your family's house and you told me, listen, Thanksgiving is totally different over here. Like we listen to Bossa Nova.
I had to give you like a little
politics.
Yeah, it's very toned down.
Yes.
Our family is very eclectic. So my uncle, he has a high position in politics in Pennsylvania. His wife, she's an attorney, nonprofit attorney. Their son, my cousin, he has a full scholarship to Princeton University.
Amazing.
My aunts and uncles, political activists throughout the 80s and college. On my dad's side, all my cousins are like very successful, all scholars, went to college. So our family is like very education. I guess they promote education, I want to say. It's very important. Representation is also a big deal. I think because people look at Latinos as what's portrayed in the media and Instagram now, they don't really appreciate that we do value education, and there is a very big group of us that are educated and do come from homes where there are very high expectations. A lot of the professionals that you see, they came from humble beginnings. They're first generation college graduates, and they don't get their flowers because we're not out there. Now we have platforms, but I don't think that's what sells, right?
Right.
It's not glorified because it's not what sells. So, but I think our community has a very, 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 very strong foundation with supporting and promoting higher education.
And that's true because I know, like growing up, my mom, she was very big on school. She only had her GED, but for her kids,
absolutely,
it was nothing less than a college degree. Absolutely. It was like, if you're not going to go to college, you can't stay here. Yeah. You can no longer live with me.
And it's because she understood what she had to go through without it.
Yeah. I mean, she would make us read every night.
Girl.
Every single night, 10 pages to her. And I'm like, Ma, really?
And I'll tell you this. I was obviously rebellious, and I didn't do that at all. But I always say that I was lucky. Like, I have supportive parents. And I say this, I go back to my trauma and when I was able to take time off and I didn't have to work because my parents were supporting me. That's a luxury that a lot of people don't have. Not a lot of people make it out of that with a clear mind.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people have that support. So I do know that I am very, very lucky to have my parents.
Yeah.
Till this day, I always tell them, like, thank you guys, because, if I didn't have them, I don't know where I would be. I don't know if I would have had the time or the luxury to go to therapy or to go and sit down for a minute and do my eat, love, pray. I went to India for 2 months
You did?
and I stayed there, and I lived in Punjab, and I was going to gurdwaras and 5 a.m. for morning prayer. Like, I did that,
How was that experience like for you?
Amazing, girl.
Yeah.
Amazing. It was so humbling. It was beautiful. So not everyone gets those opportunities. So I definitely feel blessed, and very fortunate and grateful to that.
What I love about you is, and you always tell me this all the time, like, listen, girl, when you can stack a little bit of money, your self-care will look a little different and start to
Absolutely.
invest in yourself. And you always brought up like acupuncture,
Girl, yes.
hypnotherapist.
That's what it's
you would
for.
encourage me to go to spas and travel and all these like experiences, right? And I was never big on therapy. That wasn't my thing. But you always kind of forced me to
Girl,
kind of truth seek within myself.
you know what's so crazy? Like, don't get me wrong. I love a nice shoe and a
course.
nice
And a
nice
bag.
bag. You know what I mean? I'm like any other girl. Like, I love to get my face beat and all that.
Yeah.
But real luxury, like true luxury, is in your mind
Mm.
and your heart. To have that peace, like, and to be unattached, that I'm Nikki with or without anything.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the same. You know that. You've seen me.
Yeah.
I'm the same either way.
What was your first introduction to wealth, and then what is your definition of wealth now?
Oh, that's a good one. My first introduction to wealth. I don't think I've had my first introduction to wealth yet.
No.
I don't think so.
What
The
does
way
wealth-
that my standard of wealth, I guess it's very high
Yeah.
because I haven't touched it yet.
Mhm.
I guess it's for me to be able to move through the world as I please and not have to think about my next few generations.
Mm.
So that, to me, is wealth. I'm still building. So
Yeah.
I haven't touched wealth yet, so working on it. I'll let you
Yeah.
know when I get there.
Yeah. I always say like wealth to me, happiness, love is like the times that I spend with my mom.
That's
You can't
amazing.
buy that.
No,
You
You
can't
can't.
put that on a rack.
no, you can't.
It's not for sale.
No.
You know? And like true wealth to me are those moments that you can't buy. Like I'm sure like you tell me all the time, like you'll look at your daughter and you're like, I can't believe I made this
Oh
human.
my gosh, I have like a whole little human.
Like you
Bro, it's
and I
crazy.
remember telling you, like, you're a whole mom right now.
I still look at her and I'm like, I did that. And
How
I
has
remember.
that like shifted your perspective on life and what's important to you now, what matters?
So it's crazy, right? Because it changes every so often.
Yeah.
So right now in like mom mode, I used to love my nails.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like I was like my nails were my thing.
Yeah.
And I can't believe how comfortable I am without them. That's being a mom to me. Like nothing else really matters.
Would you say like minimalistic approach on life? Like now you're living this minimalistic lifestyle.
I don't want to say that because that would be extreme. Minimalistic is a very extreme term compared to how I am. So yeah, not minimalistic. But I think it's just more my priorities obviously have shifted,
Yeah.
right? Aurora is a big part of my day. Breastfeeding is a journey.
Yes, I
Okay.
know.
It is a journey.
You've shared that with me.
Oh, it's insane. It's insane. But it's so rewarding.
And I always ask you, wait, hold on, because I'm always telling you, I'm like, so this wasn't in the book? What to expect when you're
No.
expecting? You're like, no.
Listen.
I'm like, are you sure?
They
So every
don't
moment you go
put
through, I'm like, that
nothing
was
in that book. I need to rewrite a
You
book.
need to like write a B-side of that book.
Listen, the B-side is real. Like they don't tell you that these little humans that are cute have like a whole personality.
Yeah.
They don't prepare you for that.
Yeah.
Like it's crazy. And it's like you have to put value into this human, like,
For sure.
and really think about and do everything with purpose, right? You can't just have this little human and be like, all right, throw some food at it and you're gonna be all right. Like, no, now I have
Call
to
me when
like,
you're ready.
right? Like, now I have to think like, okay, so she needs a schedule. I have to create a safe environment. I need to create room for her to grow and adventure out so she's a confident human being, and make her comfortable with exploring, and like all these things you gotta like think about. Like, parenting is like so weird.
It's crazy,
A
right?
lot. So now going back to my parents,
Mm-hmm.
and this is why I always say give your parents grace. Because imagine being 25, because I'm 37, so I'm considered old.
Oh, stop.
So, girl, they call you
Stop.
geriatric pregnancy. Did you know that?
No.
Yes,
Do they really?
girl.
That's a thing.
It's a real
I'm
thing.
like, that's a thing.
They label you. They'll be like, oh, geriatric pregnancy.
What
and
is
I'm
like
like,
the threshold?
36.
My
I gave birth
God.
at 36. Yeah.
I'm
it's
like,
real.
so I gotta give birth
Yeah.
now.
So yeah. You're gonna be in that senior citizen club, girl.
Oh my God.
So give your parents grace. Like, you know how we always so quick to be like, oh, but my mom ain't do this. Yo, do you know what you were doing at 25? Like, think about me at 25 with a baby. Oh,
Yeah.
no, girl.
I often think about that because my mom had me at 24, and I'm like, damn, when I was 24, I was going crazy. I was traveling. I was going clubbing. I was doing a bunch of things.
Now I'm like, now I did all the fun stuff, all the craziness. I lived through my trauma, right? So I got to heal.
Yeah.
And now I'm a parent, right? So I'm going through this healing, and now I'm able to mentally sit down with my child. Whereas they didn't. They were still in survival mode. They were still figuring themselves out. My parents got married 2 weeks after they met, girl. Like, literally 2 weeks. So their story is like, all right, we're going to do this. We're going to do this. All right, you want to have a family? Okay, let's have a family. It was like that. And they just never separated. And life has thrown them curveballs, and they just stayed consistent.
I want to talk about relationships because I think this is a good segue for that.
Ugh.
And you and I talk about that all the time, and boundaries, what to accept, what not to accept. And one of the things that, you know, I have always seen, and things that you've actually told me was, I'm never leaving my husband. And you've been such a huge support system to your husband, your family. And recently I came over a clip, which I actually DM'd you recently, right? And it was Viola Davis.
I love her.
And she said, marriage doesn't start when you say I do.
That's a fact.
It starts when you go through like your arguments and the disagreements.
The mundane things. Marriage, and I was just going through it again today. Marriage is not the fairy tale part, right? I always tell people, like, yeah, it's a big wedding because you're celebrating an epic time of your life. And not everyone does that. I didn't have a big wedding. I had a dinner and we did City Hall. But the reason you have witnesses is because you are declaring to your community that this is your person. And you are going to do you know anything else where you have to get witnesses except like major contracts?
Right.
Okay, yeah. It's because it's life-changing.
Right.
And you're saying this is your person, and, you know, you're going to do this together in the world. Don't get me wrong. It is not easy by any means. And I feel like now there's so many other factors attributed to marriage.
Well, one of the things I want to bring up, and let's just provide some context for the audience. So your husband is Nigerian. So you're Dominican, he's Nigerian, and now you have this baby who's now mixed, right? And
she's African twice, we always say.
yeah. So let's just talk about that and just that dynamic of culturally, because being Nigerian also, he has a different belief system within his culture. And then you also grew up on these traditions and belief system within your culture. So how are you guys able to coexist? What are some of the difficulties there? And then how does this show up that now you guys have made this entire family, this baby now, And how does that work out?
So you know Obi.
I do know
I always
Obi.
call him your husband.
Yes.
Talk to your husband, please.
Yes, I know. Hi,
So,
husband.
yeah, Obi is an anomaly of a person. He's very special. And sometimes he could be very difficult, as I'm sure every wife can say about their husband, and vice versa. But one thing, I can say many good things about him, but one thing is that he allows me to be myself.
He does.
And he gives me grace in that whole what the expectations are of a wife. So we don't have the traditional, like, you cook and clean and you do this and you do that. That's not really the dynamic in our household at all. We really have a team dynamic at home. If I have the baby, you do this. And if you got something to do, I'll work on this. What do you need from me? It's almost like we're always passing each other the ball.
Right.
Like we have that dynamic. But like any other team, you have your rifts. Like, you're not going to always see eye to eye. Obi's traditional in the sense that his expectation is to be respected as a man. So what does that mean? I think for him, it's more to allow him to make decisions and not overpower him or overshadow him or undermine his decisions, really. Which I have no problem, because I think he allows me, or allow is the wrong word. I think he supports me in being an equal, as far as like, sometimes he's unsure about something and he'll pass me the ball. Babe, what do you think? So there's no like, oh, what I say goes. You know what I mean? It's not like that at all. Whereas in what some people would think in a traditional Dominican household, the man has the final say so. In my household growing up, that wasn't really the dynamic either. So I'm actually not surprised that the person that I chose to be my partner is like my father in that sense. Very diplomatic. I think the approach is important.
Right.
I don't approach my husband in a way that is, I guess, I try not to antagonize, or I don't approach him in a controversial way.
Right.
That would be the best word. I'm very mindful of not, because I've always told you could say whatever you want to someone. You have to be mindful of how you say it in order for it to be effective. And that takes into account the person's background, their upbringing, their dynamic, their environment. Like all of these things play into how someone receives something. And part of being married, I think I've taken a lesson from my parents, is I've studied my partner. I understand what will trigger him. I understand his weaknesses, and I try not to highlight on his weaknesses. Rather, I support him in that area. And then, sometimes you got to check somebody.
Right.
Everybody does. Sometimes I need a little checking,
Right.
And you've done it to me too, as a friend.
Yeah.
And just receive.
And likewise.
And you have to receive that, because, you can't just be batting at 100 and not play catcher sometimes.
What I find interesting as well is that, so you have this partnership in marriage with Obi, but then you guys also do business together. So talk a little bit about that, because not most couples can operate in that space, right? Because just even having a partnership in business is hard. So when you actually do business with your partner and then have to go home,
so we work from home, so that makes it even harder. I think we trust each other and respect each other. I think one thing that a lot of people probably wouldn't expect is that even though Obi's Nigerian and, he's very stubborn, but he respects my opinions, and he'll take the time and actually treat me as a partner. And it's sad that as women that we kind of don't expect that in our relationships, right? But he's very much of a forward thinker in that sense. he's able to separate me from being his wife. There's a plus to it because, I am his wife, so I am him and he is me. You know what I mean? So we move like that. And trust me, there are times that, Allie, I call you all the time and I'm like, girl, kill him. In that same calm voice.
But then there are times, I remember in our last conversation, you said something to me that really hit me. You said, let this be a teachable moment, Allie. Because you went through if it was me and I was going through it, I probably would have moved out and isolated myself. And you remain calm. And I think it's very important to highlight that. You remain calm. Your composure was just A1, like the entire way through. And you just told me, like, let this be a teachable moment. You have to remain calm, let it play out, because for me, I freak out with everything. I never let anything play out, and you're always telling me, let things play out. And I feel like in your relationship, in business, you've always let things play out while still maintaining that control.
Look at it this way. Like, why waste excitement if you don't even know what the outcome is yet?
Girl.
It's like why am I
thinking of the future ahead of time?
But then what if you're getting anxious and it turns out great? So why not get happy for the future?
Right.
Why do we always go for the negative? I'll give you an example.
It's that thing of the unknown. You just don't know.
But if you trust, you'll have peace.
Think about it like this, Nikki. Do you remember when we all went on lockdown?
Yeah.
And that was the unknown, right? Like COVID-19, we didn't know what was going on. We couldn't make sense of it. Like, what were your initial thoughts and how did you I was freaking out.
I was thinking about when I was in DR and the lights went out and my grandma would be like, 5 o'clock, get in the house. And I was like, oh, this is like Santo Domingo.
Right.
You know what I mean? I mean, everything is a mindset, Allie. That's how we survive. Honestly, everything happens in our brain. Like, literally, everything happens in our brain. Like, if you, in your mind, create this situation where, no, this is going to be horrible. I can't handle it. What if you changed that? Like, what if you took a minute and was like, I'm not even going to think about this. I'm just going to walk in and see what happens. And then whatever comes, I'll react.
Is that how you approach business as well?
Yes, for the most part.
Yeah.
I'll have a plan. Obviously, everyone, financially, you have to plan. But outcomes, I'm prepared. I'm prepared for a failure and for a success. I don't get excited either way. Because in excitement, when you have a success, you kind of lose footing and you forget to keep working. Because you're like living in success. But even having those
goals, like even with like the whole brand Nikki Maar and having like goals that you would set for yourself, like I want to see my brand do this, I want to hit these numbers, I want to bring in this type of revenue, and what if it doesn't happen? Like, how do you then?
I give myself grace, Allie.
Yeah,
I just have to, because what am I gonna get out of being frustrated?
Right.
Again, self-talk. I tried my best. I know I did, and just move forward. Like, I gotta be good to myself first. And this goes back to maintaining control. I don't give too many things a reaction.
Yeah.
Because like, who wants to deal with someone that's out of control? Nobody.
Girl, nobody.
And you've seen me go through stuff. I've gone through some stuff. Boy.
Girl.
From assistance to like all this craziness.
Everything.
Yeah. And
like, I don't even know how. I remember you were like literally in labor in LA, and still walking me through my own issues. And I'm like,
I remember
you're
that.
about to have a baby.
I remember that. And I was like, Allie,
I'm like, how are you talking to me right now and not telling me to shut up? I don't know how you do it.
I recently, so my cousin was visiting Aurora. She was here over the weekend. And we always talk about like being mindful of our behaviors and our intentions. And even before you speak to someone, just being mindful of the words you use and in your approach. And we were talking about being meta aware.
Meta aware.
Yeah, that's like a thing.
What is that?
So
Meta aware.
yeah, you can Google it, but being meta aware, I guess the way that she was using it is when you can actually, I guess, visualize, see your behaviors and how they'll affect someone, and knowing that this is what you want to do, but not doing it. It's like being aware of your behaviors and actions and other people. It's like on another level. But then she was telling me that I was meta aware. I was like, oh, okay, that's a new one. But the idea, I guess, is to just I'll go back to what we were talking about. So she was telling me that a lot of my beliefs and kind of things that I was saying were aligned with Buddhism.
Oh, for sure.
So yeah, so like eliminate the ego, right? Like, because we make a lot of decisions based on ego and like, oh, you gonna respect me, and it's like, what does that really mean?
Yeah.
You know, like all of that. What's all
I think
that
it's
about?
like projection, right? When you project your fears onto other people. Because I have that in me as well. Like, respect is a big thing for me. So if I even get a little inkling,
I know.
You're
We had that.
disrespecting me, I'm like,
but then like,
no.
But then look.
And
so
I'm like, where does that come from? Like, I don't even know.
Yo, it's crazy. Like subconsciously from our childhood, everything starts there. Everything is in your childhood.
It's crazy.
And you gotta, a lot of people are comfortable in dysfunction. A lot of people don't realize it, but it's like if something dramatic isn't happening, they gotta like disrupt it because it's like, nah, something's going on.
Yeah.
Nah, you trying to get me. Like, no, sir. No, ma'am. None of that. Some people don't even want positivity around.
Or they don't know how to.
Because it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, they don't know how to receive that.
Because it's weird. That'll be like weird, right?
We live in New York, right? So if you're, I take the MTA. So if you're on the train and someone looks at you, or even in school, I know back in the day when I went to school and someone would look at me.
You got an eye problem?
What you looking at? And
you got an eye problem? That was the famous one, right?
Like, what just happened here?
Right, but we won't ever think like, oh, my outfit is fly. Right. Nah, we won't think like that. We won't think like, oh, it's a problem. Why? Why are we wired like that?
And it's like even sometimes in New York, like people walk around like they're angry all the time. And it's like, how are you angry at 8:00 in the morning? Like, what is going on in your life?
So I'm going to challenge you. If you take every negative thought and turned it into a positive, how much easier would life be?
It's harder to turn negative thoughts into positive thoughts because it requires more work.
So that's being meta aware. I'm having this thought right now. It's not a real thought. Like, it's not realistic, rather, right? This person doesn't know me, so why would they have a problem with me? That's not even real.
I'm going to tell you when that happened for me, believe it or not. During the pandemic, or like kind of when we were just coming out of it, I had to get my wisdom tooth removed. And I was like, just sedate me because I don't even want to go through the pain of like, or even see it, because it's like when you see it is when it becomes real. So I'm what do you call it? Under sedation, in sedation, under sedation? I don't know.
Whatever.
I'm sedated.
You're sedated. You're under.
I'm under. And when you get your wisdom tooth removed and you're sedated, you can still hear everything that's happening around you.
Real?
Yeah, you just can't feel it. Your eyes are closed, but you can hear it. And it was actually like a cool little moment where I saw like paintings of something on the wall, just like all these bright colors. And I can feel the tugging of them like removing it, but it wasn't pain. It was just tugging. But in my mind, because I felt the tugging, to me, I felt pain. So I remember yelling like, ah, ah. And the nurse said, Alexandra, you're fine. You're okay. You're fine. And for some reason, when she said that, I calmed down. And I said, I'm fine. And then I remember when I actually woke up, I said, what if I just told myself that? Every single time I went through something like, Alexandra,
that goes back to the hypnosis.
Fine. Yeah, you're fine.
So
you're
you
okay.
can actually do this yourself at home. Like you could tell your listeners, if you take your your voice and you record yourself giving yourself positive affirmations, it's probably more effective because it's the voice that you truly hear in your head. And give yourself positive affirmations and play that to yourself every night. You'll replace that voice that gives you anxiety.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty dope. Like the mind is
It's crazy, right?
it's a crazy place and you could get lost in it. That's why people, sometimes don't recover from situations
Yeah.
because they're unable to get that control, right?
Yeah. But somehow you found like the other side. Like you got introduced to the other side of
I
it all.
really did. So I didn't finish telling you when I was in LA, I bumped into my rapist. I did. And I
What?
called, so at the time I was doing Reiki therapy. Called my Reiki therapist. I was like, why is this happening? And that's, she gave me a whole explanation on how to look at him in empathy. And I'm going to tell you why
I don't
that
think
helped
I could
me.
ever do that.
I did. She said, be empathetic because it's for you. If you change your feeling from anger and feel sorry for him, it'll help you heal. It's crazy.
Wait, what? I just need to ask. When she said this, what was
It
your
didn't make
thought?
sense to me, but
Okay.
I really had to change my heart, and it softened my heart. It did. I had to feel sorry for the fact that you don't know any other way. The fact that this is how you go through life. I felt sorry for him. And it's crazy that slowly my heart softened and without me even noticing it. And I was eventually vindicated because he was arrested in 2021
Wow.
in Las Vegas for the same exact thing. Yeah.
That's insane.
It's insane.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
insane.
And I had that moment when I saw that, I was like, wow. And so all the all the dust settled for me. And like I had these amazing experiences and I was able to finally like let that version of me go. Like I put that version of me to rest. And it was like, and then all these amazing things started happening. It's crazy.
And who are you now? Like, who is Nikki now?
Nikki's a mom.
Yes.
Like
yes,
Nikki went from Nikki Nights to,
Nikki Nights.
Nikki Nights was a thing, girl.
Yes.
And I went from Nikki Nights to then I became Nikki the wife, and now I'm Nikki the mom. And it feels so good.
Yeah.
I have this little human and I have all these amazing things I want to teach her and protect her from. But she's so cool.
Do you see characteristics in your daughter that are similar to like you now? Or
Yeah, girl. It's crazy.
Yeah.
She is persistent already. She is 9 months yesterday. And Aurora she doesn't want to do anything else but learn to walk. Like she is holding on to walls, climbing. She's gonna figure out a way to walk so that she could chase me around the house.
Oh my God. She's so smart.
She's so smart.
And she's always challenging you, which is like so bizarre.
And she's very intuitive. She loves to hear me talk. So every time you and I have conversations, she literally like stares at me like, what are you saying?
Yeah. And I always find it like just amazing that you allow her to watch you work. And you even bring her to work with you sometimes.
Yeah, of course. You got to learn. You got to work in this world. That's one thing you do in this world is work.
Yeah.
Work, breathe, die. Those are and taxes. Don't forget taxes. That's the thing. Those are the things for sure you're going to do. But I feel like I was blessed enough to have my daughter at the perfect time in my life.
Do you think she saved you?
No, I was saved before. I saved myself. I'm going to give myself that. I saved myself. Again, awareness. I was very mindful. I knew that I didn't want to have a daughter and unpack on my daughter. I
Right.
never wanted that. Never. I was always very mindful about that.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to make sure that I could give my child the best version of myself. And I accomplished that.
One of the things that you and I, amongst all the things that we discuss, is just how are you raising her to understand the culture? And what I mean by that is you have a hair care brand, right? And hair plays a major role in our
It does.
community. And you also have a salon as well. So even that, and I always tell you, like growing up, I wasn't allowed to wear my hair curly.
I think none of us were.
But
That was-
your daughter has amazing
I love
curly.
her curls.
Yo, she has really dope curls.
So this is something that I've kind of like played over in my mind. And I mean, it's 2023. I want to give her the confidence and knowledge about who she is
Mm-hmm.
and let her make decisions later on. But for her childhood, Aurora is a Nigerian Dominican girl. She is Black. She's beautiful. She has curly hair. And that's who she is. When I was growing up, I knew my Dominican national anthem.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't expect anything less from her. She has to know who she is. Because without that, she'll be lost in this world. I need my daughter. She has books in Spanish. You know, I read to her in Spanish. Food and culture in our culture is very important. Food, our language. A lot of kids nowadays, you know, parents unfortunately don't have the luxury to sit there and talk to their kids. So the TV is easier,
Yeah.
you know?
Or YouTube or whatever.
Yeah.
Because it's whatever keeps them quiet, right?
Right, because we got to get stuff done. Like, it's not easy, especially those first very important years. Like, those first very important, influential years are like the times when we're doing the most, right? Like, look at what happened. Elle Magazine, Editor's Choice. Now I'm expected to go and rush off to like work and market and do all these things. But my daughter is 9 months old. Like, she needs me the most right now. So it's like balance. And that's kind of the point. I guess that's my new challenge in this phase of my life is balancing. Because it was easy when it was just me and Obi. It was like, you know, it wasn't anything crazy. I was like, all right, what are we doing tonight? You know,
And now you got a little
now
one.
it's like, all right, I got to feed Aurora at 6:30 so I could put her down by 7:30. So then I could start working on the projects.
But I love that though, because it gives you structure. Like
Yeah.
for someone like me, I feel like I would love something like that because it provides structure in my life. And I work off of like routine and schedule.
Right.
Anything that's off my routine and schedule,
Tell you right now, you think you have a schedule with a newborn? Nah,
not
so
really.
much.
Things happen all the time.
Get a cold, not feeling good, they're teething. You're kind of like at their, you kind of like have to be at their beck and call.
Yeah.
But as far as like, you know, trying to run the businesses with Obi and kind of going back to that partnership, I think we do well. I mean, it gets hard, but I think we do well with managing the brands. You know, Obi has Shop Obscene, a clothing line. We actually brought you a hoodie. It's cold outside, so I got you a little something.
What?
This is from Shop Obscene.
Let me see.
Yeah, Obi sent you that. So these just came in. These are the new hoodies.
Really?
Yeah.
Ooh, shout out to Obi and Shop Obscene. This is not. Ooh, what did I just? Ooh, guys.
I know you love a good hoodie.
Yes, I do.
So you see the arm like
This is
yeah,
dope.
right? I know.
This is really fire.
We thought so.
I love. Yeah, this is really nice.
I hope
Thank
you like
you,
it.
guys.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Shout out to Obi. Thank you, Obi. Thanks,
Of
Nikki.
course. He's also working on an artist, Adam Banks. They're
Yes.
working on getting him a deal. So we have all these things that we're trying to do, but I think home is really a priority right now. And it's really hard. It's like a juggle, girl. It's like, okay, what needs attention right now?
Yeah.
And just trying to do that, but we'll figure it out.
I love that you guys are supportive of one another's dream. Like he never, even down to this interview, right? Like I told you like, come on the show.
Oh, God,
And
I
you were
know.
so like, I don't know. And Obi was like, no, you should go on her show. Like you should actually.
I know, because then it was like, you're not going to support your friend. And I'm like, why would you say that? Like, don't make it about that, right? Like, why would you do that?
Yeah.
It's not fair. So he made it about that.
But I love that he kind of pushes you. So what I feel like you already
Discomfort.
know. No, it's more like you have that potential in you. Like you already are amazing. You already
Allie, these
know
are the
how to
things I
your
tell
story.
you. You are amazing.
Yeah, but it's easier to tell someone else that and not.
No, I
you
know
know.
I'm amazing. I tell myself. I have that pep talk in the morning.
Yeah.
I tell myself every morning, listen, I have like 2 minutes that I give myself in the morning. I look in the mirror and I'm like, you're amazing. You got this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things I keep saying, one of the things, no, but because I think in our friendship, there's so many things that we talk about. Confidence is a huge part and a topic that we always discuss. For me, I've always felt that I lacked confidence. And I would always feel like, oh, I need this person, I need that person. Whether it was a man or
Girl, I always tell you,
whoever.
you got this.
And you would always say, to this day, you're like, Allie, you need no one
You
but
don't
yourself.
need nobody but yourself. You are an amazing individual. You've accomplished so much. And like when we wrap, you can cut this part out and play it to yourself if you need to. You know what I mean? Like
while I'm going into REM.
Yeah, like
no, but I want to talk about that because I think it's important to surround yourself with like-minded individuals, people that you can discuss money, success, business, career, like all these different things. For me, you have been that friend for me, right?
Oh, thank you.
Because I feel like you, and not to play any of my other friends, my friends are amazing, but our friendship, the topic has always been level up. And so we support each other in a way where it's like, let's level up. Let's figure out how we're going to level up. We're not going to talk about other people. Very rarely do we talk about what the next person's doing or whatever.
Unless it's like...
And even when I do tell you, like I'll call you like, oh my God, can you believe it's this person? And you're like, Allie, I think that's okay. I think let's focus on whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
And let's figure that out. And I appreciate that because they always say you have to be responsible of the energy that you bring into a room, and the energy that you have brought into my life has always been like that leveling up energy.
Aw, thanks.
No, seriously. And I always wonder like where that comes from, that strength, that confidence, that I want more attitude. And don't give up on yourself. And even in like the hardest times, and I think that's important for people to hear within this moment because you just share a traumatic experience that you actually, this is the first time I'm hearing about it. I don't think you've ever shared this. I'm thinking back like, no, I don't think she's ever, I wasn't even expecting that.
Not to that extent. And because I want you to understand that there's nothing in this. And I always told you, you're made from the same elements that stars are made from. That's a real thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you are amazing. We all are. We are all individual pieces of amazing. So why not push myself? Why push myself down and not up?
Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because down is easy? But I don't get anything from that. I don't enjoy that.
Right.
So why not push myself towards something I can enjoy?
Because it's hard when gravity starts taking over.
But when you're down there, right? How hard is it to be down there? It's miserable.
Yeah, it's miserable.
It's miserable. And nobody ever thinks about that. Let me tell you something. When I was going through like my battles with being toxic and going to like substances and stuff, there came a point where I couldn't do it anymore. I would remind myself how bad it would make me feel. And I kept that feeling very, very present and very much on the surface.
Mm-hmm.
And that helped me get to the next level. So I say that to say this. Even though it's hard to push yourself up, it's worth it. Like, you just constantly have to tell yourself, I'm worth it. Why not? Why not? Like, why not? Like, I have one life to live. Let me get the best out of it. Let me make the most out of it. And nowadays, everyone like is consumed with social media and looking at other people's successes. I feel like that's kind of given people a false sense of self. Like, you're able to take some pictures and look good, so it's a cheat, right? So now I can just take this picture and look like I'm doing good. I don't really have to do good. But what do you get out of that?
Right.
Where is that? What are you doing for yourself? Like, what are you getting for yourself? You're not really experiencing it. You're just doing it for other people.
Very true.
You know, like, do it for yourself.
What is one thing, if you had like just a last gem for our audience, what's one thing you would want to leave them? There is so many.
I think for the most part is something that I always tell you. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to yourself, whatever that means to you. And don't allow your ego to make decisions for you. That piece of humble pie tastes real good sometimes. It can get you a lot further than an ego. And that has brought me peace. I don't mind being the first to apologize. I really don't. Because for me, it's like, what's the worst that could happen, right?
Yeah.
Things go great. The worst that could happen is they reject it, but I tried. But I guess don't be comfortable in dysfunction. You know, try to reach for that higher self, and then all the other things, all the tangible things fall into place. I think that's the most important.
That was beautiful. You ready for my rapid fire?
Oh,
my
God.
GUL rapid fire?
Go ahead.
All right. Tell me you're Latina without telling me you're Latina.
Bachata Saturday morning, girl.
Oh, damn. Yes.
Bachata Anthony Santos Saturday morning.
Ooh, any particular song that you love?
Oh, God, no. Anything on the playlist.
Okay.
It's going.
What does it mean to you to be Latina?
Strength. It's the first word that comes to my mind. I'm strong.
Do you feel like you have to be strong? Like Latinas always have to be strong?
That's like a whole nother segment.
Part 2.
That's a part 2. But yes,
Okay.
I do, for so many reasons.
Okay. We're going to bring her back, guys.
Oh, God.
What is this chapter of your life called?
I thought you asked me that, but I'm going to balance.
I knew you was going to say that because I think I did ask you that
You did.
before.
Okay.
And finish this sentence. Growing up Latina is...
I was going to do something real crazy.
What?
The flyest shit ever.
Yes. Come on now. Nikki. Nicole.
Allie V.
Thank you for coming. I
You're
know this was
welcome.
completely out of your comfort zone. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for sharing your story. You guys, make sure you follow her. Share your Instagram handles with everyone.
Oh, God. Shop Nikki Maar. And please follow my salon, Nikki Maar Salon. We're in West New York. My stylists there are great. I love all my girls. And what's the other one? Shop Obscene, guys. Coming soon.
Yes.
And yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Allie.
Yes. Ooh, you did it.